Well, good morning. Looks like it is 10 o'clock. We can go ahead and get started. Our call to order and introductions, but I think we all know each other. Currently, it looks like we have 4 members. We do not have a quorum yet, unless I don't know if Dar or Scott Neves have
I'm
delegated authority.
Alan's here, so Alan's speaking for Kellis too.
If Andy's not here, I am an alternate, so I can vote.
Okay,
I'm
well,
voting for Cam Bites.
you are Robert.
Yes.
Okay, well, it looks like we're good to go. If Andy jumps on, he can take over for Dar. So we'll go ahead and begin. Are there any changes that need to be made to today's agenda? So if you've had a chance to look that over.
There's some old business to add. Just an update on the ECW phone maintenance, that you approved the ECW phone purchase to go through, but I was renegotiating the maintenance costs, so I'll update you on that.
Okay, if we make that item C then under 12 old business. I don't know if Brianna can update that, or at least just remember when we get to that point. We
Yep,
can
I got it.
Okay. All righty. Is there any other changes to today's agenda we need to look at? All righty. I'll just, pause for a moment. I see that Andy Hamilton has jumped on board, as well as Jim Cambites. And we will welcome Ruth Kendall. I assume Ruth's representing the Longview City Council
He is.
with full voting privileges and all rights and responsibilities that go along with that, and blame as well. So,
That's correct.
all righty. Okay, as far as the agenda goes, I'll entertain a motion on approval of today's agenda.
I'd move to approve.
Hamilton second.
Oh, we have a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Okay. That is approved. We'll move on to item 3, approval of the minute meetings from our last meeting of February 9th. Is there any corrections that need to be made to those minutes? Okay. Well, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve those minutes.
So moved.
Second.
Okay. Any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say
Who
aye.
was the second? Sorry, who was the second?
Jim Cambites.
Thank you.
All in favor, say aye.
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 Okay, any opposed? Okay, so those are approved. We are, item number 4, public comment. Do we see any, Brianna, anybody in the public that's logged on?
No.
We have not. So already, we will move on. That point, okay. The agenda packet included the payables for this past period. Are there any questions for staff concerning the payables? Okay, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion to approve the payment of the payables.
I'd move to approve the payables, Sheriff.
Thank you.
And I'll second that. Alan.
Okay, is there any further discussion? Okay, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that's approved. Item number 6, we have the Motorola radio consoles contract. We discussed at the last meeting. We just were getting some updated information. So Deanna, do you have the information on that?
I do. The packets or the document's pretty long. It's included in there. It's like, I don't know, 50 pages. And I know the last time you wanted an official quote, and that's what this is. And the quote is for $260,250. And the breakdown is, hold on, let me get to that page. I think it's 116 for the equipment. And then the labor was substantial, and then they gave us a $70,000 reduction or credit. Probably because we are full Motorola users of everything.
And I had a question on that. I know a couple of years ago, we bought all new Motorola radio equipment, and this is the same equipment that we're getting this time.
Same thing. Yep.
Okay, and I know we had the issue last time on the extended warranty. Do these fall under that same extended warranty, come with their own? Or
They
is that
do.
addressed?
It is a additional warranty for these additional consoles, but it's the same thing. So it's 116 for the equipment. The service was 213 for a total of 330. We got a $69,784 discount. So the total cost will be 260, 250, and with an annual service fee that starts year 2. And that's about 21, it's about 22,000 a year. And then there's a escalator. I didn't figure it out, but it looks like I'll have to do the math.
It's only about 1%.
Yeah, about 1%. It's less than 2.
So just a quick question, Deanna, I reviewed this as well, but I wanted to make sure. This is the service for moving the consoles from the current location to the new, in addition to the 3 additional consoles. Is that basically correct?
Correct. And the other part, they will not warranty the consoles that we have now if we don't have them manage the movement of it.
Okay. All right. Thank you.
Are there any further questions for staff on this proposal? Okay, well, hearing none, I'd entertain a motion on this request to purchase the additional consoles and facilitate the move of our current consoles to the new center.
I'd so move.
Second, Hamilton.
Okay, we have a first and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 Any opposed? Okay, that is moved, and we will note that we're joined now by Dennis Weber. Thanks for joining us, Dennis. And next up is item number 7, the internet service provider for the new center. Deanna, do you have that information or member of the
I do.
staff?
Yep. So we have been working with multiple vendors since March of 21 on basically what our needs were for the network design, redundancy. So we selected Comcast out of the group. We had worked with Watech a little bit, but in the long run, we believe that the service and the cost were substantially better with Comcast, what we would receive out of that service agreement. So we went with Comcast for our ISP services, which will provide us 2 ISP connections from the Hall of Justice to Ocean Beach. And that's basically where our network will reside, well, travel, the transport piece. And it will provide us redundancy. So like a failover if, one link, something happens to it, that we have a backup link so we don't lose services.
Okay, and this just, does this replace the current service you have in the current center?
Yeah, because currently we're under the county. And so we had to procure our own, service agreement with one of the multiple choices.
Okay, you've entered into that agreement already, you said then with
Yeah.
Comcast. So, okay.
Yeah, with Comcast.
Okay, was that made just an advisory? I don't see the need for us to approve that. That should be in the budget and part of
Yep,
the,
it's in the budget.
part of doing business. Okay, is there any questions on that? All righty. We're gonna have Wi-Fi at the new center, so,
Yeah, for sure.
all righty. Next item we have is the work from home policy. Norm, is that something you'd like to address?
Yes. So at the last meeting, we discussed that that we were working on that and it was asked that it be brought to this meeting. Janelle did prepare this document, policy number 11. Janelle is out sick today, so I'll try to hit the highlights as she and I have discussed it. I think the first and most important point is in the top paragraph where it clearly says it's working remotely is a privilege and it's not a right of the employees. We've tried to put in language that indicates that it's requires explicit permission from the supervisor. It's only in those instances where it's necessary for one reason or another, which could include illness or exposure to illness. So it allows it, but it makes it not the typical situation. It's not our desire to have everyone working remotely. I don't know if you read the policy, if there's specific questions about any of the expectations or any of the other articles within the policy, try to answer those.
So a couple, this would not pertain to dispatchers or the leads, is that correct? This is more admin staff.
It would only be if the technology actually evolved to where it could, refer to them. It really doesn't at this point. There's no way for dispatchers or leads to work from home.
Okay, and this is a brand new policy. There's not one in existence currently.
That is correct. It is a brand new policy. It is the first draft of that policy. So, I mean, certainly if there's concerns or considerations, changes that are desired, we could certainly make those. But this has gone through staff here. And this is what we're proposing.
Is there any questions for staff regarding this policy?
I had just one comment on the consequences, item D. I'm just used to seeing failure to follow this policy while working remotely may result in discipline up to and including termination. If something was bad enough, somebody really abusing it, and I think we need to have that option.
Okay, we can certainly add that.
I have a comment, maybe, just for discussion purposes. Certainly, we're in unprecedented times with COVID and such, and really, I think much of this has evolved as a result of COVID and the threats of exposing, our fellow employees and the whole issue of quarantine and such. With COVID now dissipating, fingers crossed, this really opens up a new channel, if you will, in terms of working from home. And, if it's something philosophically that we all want to agree to and allow, again, I think that's the board's purview. And again, I think during periods of COVID, a policy like this made a lot of sense. Maybe it does moving forward. I don't know, but I think that's what I would like to have us keep in mind. And really, at the end of the day, I think it comes down to how will this be managed? Because it's easy enough for me to say, I've got a little bit of a cold or sore throat today. I don't want to come in, but I can work from home. So in lieu of using a day of sick leave, which I've accrued, again, as a manager, now I have a choice to whether or not to allow this employee to work from home. And I think that's really what this policy looks at down the road. And I guess, again, the question of the board is this a new venture that we wish to agree to and have as policy available to the manager? But I think ultimately, in the case of administrative staff now, because again, as Norman mentioned, this isn't available for our dispatchers currently. What's our pleasure? And I don't know that I have the answer to that.
Do you mind if I make a comment?
It's okay with me, sir.
Please do, Deanna.
Okay. This is a COVID control policy, so to me, it only relates to COVID situations at this time. But I would like to see maybe something in there to help manage this. Like Kurt was saying, it's really easy to wake up on the wrong side of the bed one day and just be like, oh, I don't feel like getting dressed. I'll work from home. I think there should be some accountability as far as, what it was that you accomplished while you were working from home, and reading emails, I don't think is really adequate. And if you don't bring your work laptop home with you, or, if you can't verify that they have internet access to actually perform their duties, I just have concerns with that they're, maybe not working their 8 hours a day at home.
This is Scott. If I could just throw a quick comment out, kind of to build on what's already been discussed. I don't think this policy addresses some of the issues with working remotely is when it deals with safety and security of communication center owned equipment, what information is being driven across unsecured networks, those pieces, which I think is a red flag. Also, the other issue that I think has not been addressed is you have a new leadership coming into the communication center that may not agree with this policy or agree with this thought process. And are we saddling that person with something before they show up here that they may not agree with? My piece would, maybe we need to take a tactical pause for a minute. Hopefully we'll have a decision fairly quickly on the new leadership and allow that person to tackle this when they arrive.
Is there any other comments or questions concerning this?
Just, I would comment that I happen to agree with Scott's statement there. And I really do feel that a new director should probably have some input with regard to this policy. It does have long-lasting implications, perhaps.
Well, perhaps at this point, maybe those who raised concern, I'm going to go back to Alan's initial concern as well that he raised, and certainly the other ones. Maybe if you could put those in writing and send those to Norm, and he could put those into, maybe amend the draft, and we could revisit it in the future. Does anybody object to that method of moving forward? Well, at this point, why don't we do that? If you do have some concerns or suggestions on how to better this policy, or at least come up with the draft that we can have in place, and they will just keep it tabled until we get an executive director on board and address that at that time. Are there any objections to that? All righty. Well, hearing none, why don't we move along to number 9? Consider extension of legal services agreement. This is with Frank Randolph. We discussed it at our last meeting, and asked for input from anybody who wanted to comment one way or the other. I know I'd heard from, I think 2 people that there were positive reviews of Frank's services. And I don't know if I think Norm was copied on those. I don't know if you heard anything beyond what 2 positive comments.
I have not heard anything in addition, other than the fact that you and I had discussed through email that if it was the preference of the board that we could go into executive session at this time to discuss it. But if not, if you want to act on it, it is simply an exercise of an option that the board had in the agreement from 2020. So if you're looking at page 4 of that agreement, section VI number 1, it gives you that option to extend it by 2 years with an additional cost of $5 per hour. So Frank's current rate is $200 per hour, so it would go to $205 an hour. But I've not heard any other than those two that I think we both got. I haven't heard of anything else.
Okay, and by approving this agreement, that would carry us through 2023,
No, 2024.
2024 with the services. Oh,
So it would take us through March 31st of 2024.
okay. Is there any questions, comments concerning this? Okay, hearing none. Yes, go ahead, Mr. Hamilton.
I'd go ahead and make a motion that we enter into the agreement.
I'd second.
Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor, say aye.
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 All opposed? Okay, that motion carries. We're up to item number 10, the law TAC and fire TAC reports. I know Chief Criminal Deputy Brightbill's in some training actually with part of the Spillman CAD project right now. He did say they had a joint meeting and they are scheduling out Spillman training for users as we transition to Spillman CAD. And I don't know if Bill Lamons with Fire District 6 has any input from the fire side, reference their joint meeting or anything concerning fire.
We just had that joint meeting. They're still talking about run card stuff and, nothing really came out of the meeting.
Okay, yeah, they're just nothing really new, just moving forward with the transition. Next up is the director's report. So Norm, take it away.
Okay, so for staffing update, we are still at 17 dispatchers that are fully trained, and we are down to 3 trainees. So a total of 20. Climate and culture, we have scheduled a leadership training for the admin group for next Monday with Dave LaFave and his leadership training. Facility update, I've got a few pictures that I think Bree will share her screen and bring those up, hopefully. So you can kind of see the current status of the building. We do not have the siding going on yet, but we do hope to get that started next week. You can see that most of the windows in the front are in. This is an inside shot of the employees' entrance. You can see that the door's not in, but all the windows in that end are done. You can see the cement masonry wall on the left side of that photograph, which comes from the outside and extends in. You could also see that the sheetrocking was up and was mudded and taped. This is the dispatch floor, so you can see the extent of the windows. There is that floor that you see there is the bottom of the recessed floor. So the permanent floor will be raised 2 feet above that, which is basically matches the bottom of the windows. So the windows will basically be floor to ceiling on that one wall.
So Norm,
Yes.
is that a view looking out the rear then?
Yeah, it looks to the north. Yes, so
Okay.
that's the block wall. That's a 7-foot wall, basically on the property line with the railroad.
Okay.
Yeah.
Good. Yep. Thank you.
And the HVAC is probably about 85% in. They are sweating on the line sets. excuse me, that bring the refrigerant into the units. The plumbing, they've got about 3 days more of corrections that the plumbers have to make, but all of that rough in is essentially complete. All of the insulation has been placed. You can see some of it on the side walls that are still exposed because we don't have the sheetrock completed. And you can see some of it that's got the plastic up on the ceiling that is got the insulation above it. The sprinkler lines are in for the fire sprinklers. So it's coming along, and we are still looking at that revised substantial completion date of April 21st.
I'll just comment. I went out last week and did a walkthrough. It's a very impressive facility, and encourage all the board members, if you're interested, to go out. And I think Norm could put you in contact with the project superintendent out there, and it's going to be very nice when it's completed. So looking forward to that. So is there any other questions on the facility? Alrighty, I think next up we had a radio update.
That's me.
Yeah.
So Castle Rock, we have the PUD agreement with them ready. We're just waiting for them to process that to actually hook the PUD power up there. We are waiting on some parts. We had a dish that we moved. I think it used to be on the fire department in Castle Rock, and it has failed. In addition, we have some issues at the Abernathy site from the storm this, I don't know, in December. We had ice fall, break one of the dishes. They took it down, tried to repair it. It has water inside. So we have another microwave on order at that location. There's some repairs that need to be done up there, but we're not going to be able to get to them until closer to spring when it clears up a little bit up there. Baker's Corner, they broke ground. They're doing the civil work there. Woodland, we're still working with the mayor down there to try to come up with a solution on the location. We would like to stay at the water treatment plant, but that appears that it might not be an option. So we're trying to find a location down there that will be suitable. I think that's all I have on the radio. Any questions?
What kind of, Deanne, I have a question on the Abernathy site where you said repairs are needed. What kind of impact does that have on the system?
Well, they've temporarily put the kind of failing microwave back up there, but it could impact, the coverage. We kind of have our fingers crossed at this point until we can get a new microwave up there.
Is it a matter of being able to find a service provider to do that, or is it equipment? What's
It's equipment with all of the COVID stuff, the supply chain. It's just a literal waiting game. The last microwave that we did at the hall here, it took them about 7 months to actually get the equipment.
Okay. Are there any other questions for staff concerning the radio update? So, okay. Well, thank you for the report. We'll move along to old business. Item number A, we have the revised COVID policy, and I think we got some additional information since the last meeting. And since Janelle's not here, Norm, do you have that?
Yes. So she did find additional information, and she working with Labor and Industries. She did find that we have options for a workaround that is acknowledged by the state. And it's been put into this policy, which is noted as policy number 8. We intentionally made it somewhat general so that we hopefully wouldn't have to continue to revise it as the policies evolve. We can evolve with it. So our insurance carrier, WCIA, did provide the services of a special counsel, and that person has reviewed it and approved the wording of the policy, as has Frank Randolph, our general counsel. So it's gone through 2 attorneys, and we feel it adequately gives us some leeway in keeping the center staffed during those times when staffing becomes strained or critical.
Well, thank you, Norm. Are there any questions for Norm about this proposed policy? Okay, so hearing none, would entertain a motion.
Wait a minute, Sheriff, I've got one. I just have a question. I'm sorry. But under strained or urgent staffing circumstances, we do say management will determine quarantine circumstances on a case-by-case basis. And reading between the lines, to me, that implies that if we have a situation where we've had a severe COVID outbreak and maybe someone's positive, okay, but resources are stretched to the absolute minimum, that we may call upon that individual to come in and work their shift with the possibility of, exposing the remaining staff. And I mean, I get it, right? This is a 911 service, and it's paramount that it be provided when needed. I guess my question is, have we looked into, are there possibilities of partnering with neighboring 911 agencies to help pick up the slack should we ever be in those types of dire circumstance?
Yeah, I don't know the answer to that, but Deanna has a comment.
Kurt, I know we have Cressa as our fallback, and they'll pick up 911 calls for us, but not for any extended period of time. Currently, what we do is if it's just, we'll say a 911 issue, then we can transfer our 911 calls to them.
You saying like if the lines were to go down, something like that?
Yeah, we had to reroute our 911 calls. They would answer those calls. And currently we have a regional radio, so we relay over the radio. So they'll take the call, get on the radio, and relay the information to us. We enter it in our CAD and then dispatch and deploy those resources. I don't know that would really be feasible during a staffing situation. And if they had to do that for 8, 10, 12 hours, I'm sure that, they're not going to say no to us. It's probably something that we could look at doing like an ILA or something with them. I think another option might be, currently we answer business calls and 911s, and, maybe the board or committee looks at some service level options that, maybe if you get to a staffing level like that, where you've only got 2 people available, you share radios, with some of the law enforcement agencies, and you don't answer business calls, and you set something up at the business offices or a recording that, tells them to call back at a different time. I mean, there's other operation levels that you might consider.
No, you currently have an SOG that allows for that.
We do have an SOG, as far as it's through like the fire, user manual where they had set up different levels of operations several years ago. But they're not specifically defined. I mean, like a supervisor kind of has to establish what that is, and not answering business calls would really, I think that's a decision the users and the board need to consider and make and see what those impacts would be. But I really think it needs to be something that's drawn out that says, this is what we're going to do in this event.
And currently your phone tree is set up pretty well that it's pretty hard to actually get to a live person, isn't it? Even under normal circumstances, but there is that automatically there that some kind of, they could leave a message for non-emergency items.
Yeah, I mean, they can leave messages with the admin staff or supervisors, but we would change that phone message if that was a direction that you guys wanted to go, that just said, I mean, we can do it literally a phone call to the county at this point and just say, this is what the message is going to say. We're not accepting emergency calls. If you have an emergency, dial 911, due to a service level, blah, 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 whatever.
Okay. Is there any other concerns or discussion points on this? I don't know if there's the board has a pleasure on this, whether to approve, discuss it, move forward.
Could, and I, at the board's pleasure here, but could we at least maybe look at seeing if there were opportunities in absolutely dire circumstances to work with CRESA to help pick these up, and maybe likewise, if they were in a situation, I know we're thin, and we were healthy, that we could, I don't know if they'd ever redirect calls to us as well, to at least make that as another, option available.
I can reach out if you would like me to my contacts at CRESA and see about and putting together an ILA. And as far as us taking their calls, theirs go to TCOM, Thurston County.
Oh, okay.
And do we have an agreement with Wahkiakum? Don't we pick up their calls on occasion as well?
We do. It's a handshake, and I know at a state level, we're all looking at putting together a written agreement that says, this is what the expectation is, and this is what we'll do.
Okay.
Norm, this is Jim.
Yeah.
Maybe there'd be some more comfort if you were able to share just a little bit about what some of those workarounds are that I provided.
Yeah, well, I mean, I think it's, I guess I'm not exactly sure what you're asking, but I mean, the workaround is if someone is exposed or asymptomatic, we do have the ability to have them come in, stay masked up until they get to their workstation. We have a remote, not remote, but I mean, it's the furthest workstation away from any other workstation. So we're keeping them as separated as possible. We wouldn't be bringing someone in that was ill or at least symptomatic. Is that what you meant, or?
Sure. I mean, we have the same policy here. If we have an exposure, we don't necessarily keep them home if they're required to wear a mask and get tested after a certain amount of days if they're asymptomatic. Right. So I just wondered if they gave you any different type of guidance.
No, it's just that it's not under the same category, but we do have some test kits here for testing, and you are correct. I mean, it's a test. I don't remember the exact protocol, but there's a testing that's associated with it. There's a temperature. There is keeping your mask on until you're completely away from everyone. And really what we're looking at is those situations where, we don't have anyone eligible to cover. And so you end up with not having the minimum number of people available for 911 calls. So if you need a minimum of 3 and we've only got 2 people, but we have a couple people that are either exposed but showing no symptoms and not testing positive, it would allow us to bring one of those people in. That's the idea behind this.
Norm, I found a flow chart Janelle has put together, kind of summing up the steps they would take if they were exposed or whatever. Would everybody like me to share that?
Yeah, if you could bring that up. I know Janelle shared that the other day with me. So yeah, we did talk about putting that up on the screen here just to see a visual of how it would work.
Does everybody see it?
Yes.
Do you want us to walk you through that, or does everyone just want to read it?
Can you make it a little bigger? That helps.
Yes.
Okay.
Are there any questions on this flow chart and how it relates to the proposed policy?
You roll down a little. There you go. Thank you.
Bree, can you move that down to the bottom? I think we just lost a line. There we go. Are there any questions on this or comments?
Well, this is Jerry. I'm just going to jump in for just a second if I can. I know that kind of like all of us, all the 911 agencies around us, I mean, everybody's plate is pretty full. I know that the staffing levels are extremely low at Lewis County. Cressa, I know that they're in the midst of a CAD upgrade that they just kicked off yesterday. Their resources are limited, I'm sure, while they're undertaking that process. And this policy, just the idea of keeping it, kind of on a case by case with this flow chart would give us an ability to evaluate the set of circumstances that is in front of us at the time and try to make decisions that make sense both operationally and for the sake of the center and its staff and citizens to still try to provide service to not only the agencies but the community as a whole. And this does talk about like Norm indicated, an opportunity that if necessary, and we've had it where staff have had exposures, but they are asymptomatic or have no symptoms at all. And they are willing and desire to come to work. And we have in the past had them quarantine at home. And it just with the continuation of COVID and the way that it presents staffing issues for the center, we run into situations where it does become difficult to maintain the level of service, and even stripping off not answering or delaying answering business calls, they sometimes kind of get intertangled with staff answering because the phone rings and staff are just hitting the answer button. So the system automatically gives priority to 911. So if a 911 and a business line are ringing at the same time, the staff will end up answering the 911 first. But the business calls, it's hard to just shut them off and not have them answered, or they're still going to intermix and it's going to kind of overwhelm the system. And it takes a little bit of time for staff to clear those so that they can be available to answer the 911. So from an operational standpoint, this policy just gives us, I feel, a little more flexibility if we have to invoke that kind of a situation where we have somebody who's had an exposure, who doesn't have any symptoms, they're willing to come to work, that we can bring them to work. We can, the dispatch floor is pretty separated. And so, the exposure potential is limited. Certainly as staff, we would continue to increase cleaning and those kinds of things around that. But it does provide us an opportunity to try and keep things flowing while we work our way through those critical situations.
Well, thank you, Jerry. Are there any further comments, questions?
I don't see anything alarming here, and it satisfies my last concern at our last meeting is, are we putting something down in writing that is outside of what's going to be tested legally from a liability standpoint? And since it's been vetted by L&I, WCIA, and this flow chart seems reasonable, I don't have any further concerns personally.
Okay. Well, I'd entertain a motion if someone would like to propose approval of this.
I'll move approval of the policy, the proposed policy number 008, the COVID control policy as presented by staff.
A second.
Okay, we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? Okay, hearing none, all in favor say aye.
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 And I'll also vote aye. Any opposed? Okay, it is so moved. Thank you for that discussion on that. Next up on old business, and if we could go ahead and take up item number C that Deanna added there. Is that, have the letters right? EWC, the phone contract?
Yeah, ECW.
Close. I was close.
So I had some lengthy discussions last Wednesday and Thursday with the rep at ECW. And they sent over a new quote for us. The hardware refresh part is the same. It's still the 311,054. Don't look at my average because I averaged it wrong. It's actually a 37% decrease. The maintenance piece of it was what my concern was, because it was up to like 117,000 a year. So their previous quote on the maintenance was $585,651. They decreased that by $215,923. If you look at the escalator, on the second year, the increase is about 9%, but then it's 2.5% after that for the following 3 years. I looked at another contract up north, and this is more in alignment with what their maintenance contract was as well. We will have a total of 13 phone consoles. So there'll be 2 at the backup site and 11 at the comm center. And then there'll be 2 displays in the comm center on big screens, basically. And we'll purchase the big screen, but it gives us the license to display what's happening with the call loads. So it's just kind of a quick look for supervisors and dispatch on what calls are coming in and who's handling what. And, you know, when you have lots of calls from the same area.
And this, at the last one, we approved the 311 purchase.
Yeah.
And now this is just the add-on of the 5-year maintenance cost
Yeah,
that we need to approve at this point, if we're going to go with the purchase, correct?
I think you approved the purchase last time, but I just wanted to get the maintenance down because I thought it was too expensive. So I guess I'm just updating you on the fact that we did get the maintenance down by 37%.
Okay. Alrighty. So is there any discussion or questions for staff on this?
I mean, do we really have an option here?
Mm,
Other
no.
than not having maintenance and that's, you know,
But reducing the maintenance was the best I could do. We don't, because in order to keep both centers up and running, we're going to need additional equipment to set up over there and stage it, make sure it's running. And when we go live over there, then we can shut stuff off here. And it could take, you know, from what my techie folks are saying, you know, maybe it takes us a week, maybe it takes us 2 weeks to make sure that everything's up and running. So.
Okay.
Okay.
So we do need to approve the this maintenance agreement to go along with the initial purchase.
Yep.
We take that, and it's rough ball somewhere in the neighborhood of 370,000 over 5 years.
Yep.
So, okay. Are there any further questions or discussion on this? If not, I would entertain a motion on this maintenance agreement for the phone system.
So moved. Sound.
I'll second.
Okay, a motion and a second. Any further discussion? Hearing none, all in favor say aye.
Aye.
All opposed? Okay, the motion passes. Next item under old business was the executive director recruitment update, but I'd like to go into executive session for this. We discussed with Frank the other day about that. Would be discuss the qualifications for a potential public employee. So if Bree can make that, move us into a private room for executive session and stop the live stream for us.
Do I include Norm in this or no, just the board members?
No, Norm can be involved. That's fine.
Okay, perfect.
One utility.
I'll put you in the breakout room.
This is the committee, right?
No, this is the board
Okay, all right, I'm exiting.
and Norm.
So do I have to do anything? Or she
No,
does?
you don't have to do anything.
Oh.
She's
Mentally. Let's see.
Okay, we're back in general session and the live stream is back on. We did have an executive session to discuss potential employment of 911 executive director candidates. And I'll just note publicly that we did identify one finalist we'll be bringing to town, try to arrange things on March 11th to have some meet and greet and the interview process with a final candidate at this point. So other than that, we have an adjournment followed by a closed meeting to discuss contract negotiations with the dispatchers. So is there anything anyone has for the good of the order? All right.
I was just gonna let the other staff or committee members know that there will be some information being sent out to you, but at this point, we probably don't need our scheduled meeting right after this. Does that sound appropriate?
Yes, yep. And I know Janelle had set that up and she's not here
Yeah.
anyway, so do that. Okay. Well, if there's no other further issues, we'll go ahead and adjourn this meeting. And those who want to stay to discuss the contract negotiations, I think if we just shut down the live stream. And Brianna, does that work for to have a private closed session just by ending the live stream?
Yes, I'll end it now.
Okay.